We shall now take a look at a very first flowchart how we are going to find the sum of two numbers. If you remember, the standard way to process anything is first you need to get 0 or more inputs, do the calculations and then do the display. Now in order to find the sum of two numbers, let us first understand what are the memory locations or variables we require. So we can think of the first memory location as n1. Think of the second memory location as n2. So what I'm going to do is, let us say I read a number 10, I read a number called 20 here. And then in order to find the sum, I can say take a third variable and add n1 and n2 and put the result here. So what are the steps I followed to do this particular calculation? First I said enter the value of n1 followed by n2. So in n1 I entered 10, n2 I entered 20. After that I say sum is assigned the value n1 plus n2. So sum becomes 30. In the last step I say print, display or show sum, which prints the value of the sum. So let us try to graphically depict this particular talk of mine into a flowchart or a symbolically depict the logic. So the first thing is going to be is whenever you do a flowchart is you're going to have a symbol called as start. Okay, all flowcharts are going to have this particular symbol called as start. Next thing what I am doing is I am reading in numbers n1 and n2. So I am using this symbol. I'll explain the symbols in a second, but just hold on to understand the logic n1 comma n2. So I am reading the values into n1 and n2. After I read the values into memory locations n1 and n2, I am required to calculate the sum. So in order to calculate the sum, what I am doing here is I am saying sum is n1 plus n2. Alright. I've used the rectangle box here. Now finally I am going to display the result or calculation of what I have done. So I am going to say print sum. Okay, I am going to print sum. And since I have done the calculation, now I can simply say stop. Okay. So there are a lot of explanation to be done in this basic flowchart because this is the approach which we are going to follow in the future problems. So if you have to begin or end a flowchart, that is start or stop, you use this particular rectangular with semicircles at the end. Now if you see here, I am doing input and here I am doing output. So for any kind of input or output, I am going to use a parallelogram symbol. So for start and stop, I am using a rectangle with semicircles at the end. For any kind of input and output, I am going to use the parallelogram symbol. Now, if I am doing any calculations or computations, anything which involves arithmetic or the CPU, I am going to use the rectangle. This is known as the process. Here what I am doing is I am calculating n1 plus n2 and putting it into sum. So here I have depicted the logic in a sequential fashion using graphical symbols. These arrows here indicate the flow of the logic. The logic is flowing from top to bottom. So this is how a flowchart is really drawn. Now you cannot really be sure that the logic of the flowchart is correct. So what you should always do is for all variables depict it like this and create a column. And at each step see what happened. Initially n1 and n2. Let us say I read 20 into n1 and 22 into n2. At this minute I do not have sum with me. In this process I am doing sum is n1 plus n2, which is this remains as it is, but sum now becomes 42. And now I am going to print the sum. So 42 is going to be printed on your screen and then I am going to stop. So few things are very important. You should know that you should be using the right symbols. The flow should be from top to bottom and always do a dry run or testing of your logic to know whether it is correct. Never be sure that your logic is correct, because 100% you could make mistakes once the flowchart becomes a little more complicated. So I hope you have understood how to draw a flowchart using basic symbols to find the sum of two numbers.